Reserve. We're with you for a fantastic round 10 clash between the Central Queensland Capras and the Luxury Paints Ipswich Jets. Great to have you with us on Phoenix Radio, phoenix.com.au. Smith somehow right down the instant touchline, 12-4 the score. Well, the first attacking opportunity the Capras had.
Hello and welcome to another edition of After the 80. As always, I'm your host, Ben Wilmot, and sitting to my right, fresh from a big weekend with Sean Kenny-Dowell, Anthony Bomber Breeze.
One of your best, one of your best. Good start.
Thank you. Well, Bomber, you're at the Chairman's Challenge all weekend. We'll get into the results in a minute, but how was the weekend?
The weekend was very good. Both our sides did really well there. Fortunately, our A-grade side didn't come away with a victory like we did last year, but our under-19 side went really well and actually beat the Gold Coast for the first time. So,
and we've got a few picked in the representative squad coming out of that as well, but we'll get into that a little bit more. Joining us on the panel this week, we have the Ipswich Jets and recently crowned PNG winger Richard Pandia.
Hey,
thanks for coming on the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me,
No worries, mate. Well, also joining us on the panel this week is North Tigers President Jason Brennan. Thanks for coming on, Jason.
Pleasure, Ben. Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Well, let's jump straight into the action from day one of the Chairman's Challenge. It kicked off with the Ipswich Diggers taking on the Brisbane side. At half-time, the scores were level at 16-all, but in the second half, Ipswich came out strong, taking the win 34-28. Bomber, it was a very close game with Ipswich only just getting the win, but it was a good result.
yeah, no, it was a good start there. We actually began the game on fire. In the first 10 minutes, we scored 3 tries in the first 10, 16-0 after about 10 minutes there. And then they went into a little bit of a lull for the rest of the half there and ended up 16-all at half-time. But in the second half there, they got the ascendancy again and scored the first 2 tries, and it was 28-16 to Brisbane before we come home really hard. I think our fitness really worked in our favour, and we got away with the win, 34-28.
And for people who don't know the Chairman's Challenge as well, it's a team selected from players from our local comp as well as some players from the Jets BRL side, and they only have about 3 training sessions, so it's not much time to get some kind of system together, is there?
Yeah, well, the combinations are always hard unless you're picking combinations from local club sides or from the Jets BRL side there, but it's the same for the Gold Coast there. They don't have BRL side, so they pick from their local sides down there, and Brisbane pick from the second division. So the challenge serves its purpose. So.
It's adequately named. Well, on to day 2, and the Gold Coast had a convincing win over Ipswich, taking the win 30-6. In the second half, the Gold Coast scored 3 tries and kept Ipswich scoreless. Unfortunately, it wasn't a good day for the Ipswich Diggers senior side, but there was good news for the juniors.
Yeah, well, they got their first win over the Gold Coast ever in the Colts, which was a massive thing for them, and probably a bit of a testament to how our Colts competition in Ipswich is travelling at the moment. There's a couple of really strong sides there. There's a couple of a lot of competition between probably the top 3 or 4 sides, and on any given day, probably not much between any of those 3 or 4 sides either. So that's probably shown in the depth of the Colts side at the Ipswich level, and it was good for them to get a victory. So.
And unlike the senior side, there's no representative side that comes out of the Colts competition in the Chairman's Challenge, so it's a lot more just playing for the pride of wearing the Ipswich jersey. A good experience for those young players?
Yeah, fantastic experience for them. You know, they're sort of fresh out of juniors, a lot of those sort of kids, and a lot of them are rep players through the junior system, but to get recognised in the senior system as a representative player, that's a big kick along for them, and sort of the future of our game in Ipswich, I think, heading into A-grade players in the future. So.
And I guess the rivalry between clubs is always a good thing, part of the Ipswich competition, but to bring those kind of players out and put them in the team together, it kind of breaks down some of those barriers that you kind of get with the old rivalries between.
Yeah, it does. It's always good to have the rivalries between clubs in Ipswich and between the players, but it's good to be able to see them come together at representative level too, and then, and come up with results like that, beating the Gold Coast. So I think a lot of those kids, though, had played a lot of representative football together in the juniors, so that probably helps a little bit too. So. Maybe there were some combinations there through school football or junior rep sides as well, which maybe helped a little bit. So,
definitely. Well, on to the third day of the competition, and the Gold Coast kept their winning streak alive, getting a big win over Brisbane to take a 32-12 victory and win the competition with 2 wins. Richie, there was a team that was picked out of the results, and there was a few Ipswich Jets players in the mix. Ono, he's been picked into the SCQ Water Dragons. What's he like to play against?
Oh man, he's real quick, and he's got good footwork, good passing as well, and whenever he gets space, that he's pretty hard to defend against and beat up. Yeah. But like I played with him. I played against him. Like when I first came down here to Brisbane, I played against Ono, and he played for Queensland Samoa, I think. Yeah. And I played for PNG. Queensland PNG. And I was like, the only way I could get to him was just cut his time when he gets the ball. So I just get straight up in his face, and every time just hit him before he gets the ball. So I would try to stop him in his way, but whenever he gets the ball, it's just too quick.
So that's your advice to his opposition,
just
is it?
get up in his face real quick. Stop him from running. Just don't give him any space.
Excellent. Well, good to see one of the Jets boys getting into the representative side as well. I mean, I'm sure with half the team coming from the local comp, half the team coming from the Jets, is it good to have those players getting amongst players from the local comp? Yeah,
it's pretty good because I think when I played BRL, I didn't get a chance to play for that because I don't know, they didn't. I think the Brisbane Rugby League didn't invite Ipswich to go join them, so we got left out, and only the A-grade side in Ipswich had they had to play. So I felt bad because I missed out because I was like, holy shit, I had a good season. So I didn't see why I couldn't make it.
Well, it's a great concept. Unfortunately for the Diggers not getting the win this year, Bomber, but Mick Newton taking over as coach this year, he'd be happy with a win and a loss out of that competition. They're always tough sides coming up against the Gold Coast and Brisbane. Yeah,
well, like you said earlier, they only have 3 training sessions, so it's hard for both coaches there to get. Sometimes they don't even know the players. Like, I'm sure Mick didn't have much of an idea on the Jets players. And he might have heard the names, but he didn't know them personally, didn't know their personalities and how they play. Watched a few games there. So obviously to pull them together there and they played really well. He was really happy with the weekend, and hopefully if he's available next year, he'll be back. So.
And of the players picked from the local comp as well, I understand you were in the selection process, so you know who was coming from the Ipswich side of things, but we had a number of players from Goodna.
Yeah. Well, like we said, I know from the Jets there, but we got Rez Phillips from Goodna there, Ramon Philippine from Goodna, and Max Sumatafa from Goodna have all made the 19. We've got a few players just hanging on the fringes there, ready to get into the team. But unfortunately, we can only pick 19. But before the carnival is played, there's a lot of local games and games on the Gold Coast and Brisbane to be played. So there's going to be injuries everywhere. So like ones like Peter Whittaker, he had a good weekend. So he's right on the borderline to be the next one in there. So.
Excellent. And a good chance for Max to get a captaincy call as well. He's not the captain of the Goodna Eagles, but he got pulled in and named captain at Ipswich.
Yeah. Well, I spoke to Max just after that there, and he was honoured to be leading the side out there. He's from Ipswich there, and it's a proud rugby league city. And like I said, to be able to lead an Ipswich team out with an Ipswich jersey on is a big thrill. So.
And Jason, Mick Newton, he's a former Tigers A-grade coach himself as well. How do you think he would have been preparing for a rep round like this?
Mick's pretty seasoned professional now. Like, he won the 2 A-grade premierships with Norse in 14 and 15, and the last 2 seasons he's been coaching our under-17 side in the juniors, so as well as this season. So he's been around enough, I think. As Bomber said, it's a tight sort of lead up with only the 3 training sessions, but I think Mick would have been just sort of concentrating on probably getting to know the players and probably trying to form a few little sort of quick combinations there, and out of that devise a bit of a game plan, I guess, heading into the weekend. So.
And I guess, how's he going with the under-17s this year as well?
Yeah, fantastic. For us as a club to have somebody with Mick's experience and resume, I guess, coaching your sort of premier age group in the juniors and under-17s, which is your next generation of senior footballers. So to have somebody with that sort of experience bringing through your next sort of senior group of players is sort of invaluable for us as a club. The kids that are in those sides last year and this year love being coached by him. And the results sort of show that in the end. So for us as a club, it's sort of fantastic to have people with that sort of experience going down to those sort of lower junior levels and nurturing that sort of next group of A-grade players coming through. So
It's crucial for the future development, so it's good to have a guy like that in there.
Yep.
And obviously getting success with the Diggers is a good result for him. Well, look, coming up next on the program, we'll be discussing the news surrounding Sean Kenny-Down, Jesse Bromwich and Kevin Proctor, as well as all the action from the Anzac Test between Australia and New Zealand, the City vs Country game and the Pacific Island Test. All that and more here on After the 80. Welcome back to After the 80, your local source of everything rugby league. And now on to the Anzac Test between Australia and New Zealand. And Australia proved too good once again, getting the 30-12 victory. Australia getting some early points in the first half, and New Zealand's just looked defence just looked weak at points during the first half of the game. Bomber, on paper the Kiwi team was pretty strong, but it just didn't come up with the goods on the weekend. What did you make of the game yourself?
Yeah, well, as you said, the New Zealand team is probably the best New Zealand team I've seen for many years. They had everybody back with Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and Kieran Foran and Johnson and Isaac Luke and all that. But they just, the first half, they just begun slow, which is normally a good trait of theirs. They normally begin and they wilt late there. But obviously, an early bit of luck to Australia there with the intercept there, but Jonathan Thurston there, you just can't doubt his brilliance there. And Matt Gillette, he just blasted him in the forwards there like he has all year, and Thurston just was the puppeteer master again. So,
Jason, when you've got pretty much your whole spine from the New Zealand Warriors team in your international side now, would you expect that combination to fire quicker rather than later in the game?
Oh, you would have expected them to, yeah, but for some reason they didn't. I think probably had that goes a lot towards the Australian side with what they've created over the last few years as well, and maybe a little bit about where the Warriors are at the moment as a club as well on their results and on the ladder and stuff like that. But I think Australia was just their normal, for these mid-season tests, their normal clinical self. They put the game away early and just with sort of methodical play. And then sort of held on to that at the end. So,
Richie, I know you would have been doing your own preparations, but did you get a chance to watch the match as well?
Oh no, I didn't watch it after the game. I just went straight to the apartment. So
yep.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Australia proving too strong again. Is it a little bit daunting having one country that's just been going so well for so long?
Yeah, I know. It's been hard, but at least like with the other Pacific nation coming up, they have a good side. So building up to it is pretty good. Having all those other NRL players, experienced players coming in and helping the nations if they don't get selected for Australia or New Zealand. So yeah, it's pretty good. Makes the competition even stronger. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess worrying signs for the Cowboys out of that was JT pulling up with a bit of an injury. They haven't been going too well without him so far. Would Paul Green be a little bit worried at the moment?
Yeah, well, obviously they were talking about what type of compensation you should get whether somebody gets injured, because obviously Dugan's injured as well, so the Dragons' hopes have gone down. But obviously it's rugby league, it's a contact sport, you're going to get injuries there. But obviously JT, he's a big part of the Cowboys, so for him not to be playing there, I don't know what the latest reports are. First reports say he's out for the whole season, then they say he's out for the whole Origin. Now the latest reports is that he may only miss Origin 1, or some reports that he may even be right for Origin 1. So let's just wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah, well, what do you make of their chances without him if he is out for an extended period for the Cowboys?
Well, as you've seen when he's been out, they haven't fared too well. Michael Morgan had to step up, and he hasn't stepped up and taken that role. So their chances without him don't look real good. So after also losing Matt Scott too, so in the forwards.
Well, Richie, I guess being able to play in a representative side like that, it's kind of the risk that your coaches play. I'm sure Ben and Shane were sweating on a few of those bigger hits from the PNG game against the Cook Islands.
Yeah, they were a bit concerned, but I was trying to play my game. You know, just trying to represent, put my trying to go give it 100, but. Didn't get to do my game because there's a lot of players that we had a week preparation and stuff, so. Had to work that out, but a lot of the boys they all played with each other. So for me coming in is I try to learn the ropes of the game. I'm more I play what's in front of me, but going there it's a bit more straightforward, and yeah, it's alright. I'm starting to get a hang of it, so I'm loving it.
There's a lot to pick up in a week.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, I guess that's the risk that every coach, every player plays when they want to do these kind of representative games. Even with the Chairman's Challenge on the weekend, it's a risk having a couple of your North Tigers players possibly come out injured out of that.
Yeah, it is, but it's also a good testament to your own club then to be able to show for your juniors and your other players coming through that there's that pathway to representative football. So it's a calculated risk, I guess, that the clubs take. Obviously, at the NRL level, it's a little bit more high stakes. There's a lot more money involved with contracts and sponsorships and clubs and stuff like that. But It's just one of those things that you have to wear as a club administrator or coach. I think that's that part and parcel that you may get some injuries out of those games.
It's a good carrot for the player. You just don't want them to get hit by the stick.
Yeah. Carrot's good. You just want them to come back fully fit and healthy to play the next week. So
that's it. Yeah. Well, with the PNG game up against the Cook Islands, it was a good contest with the 32-22 final scoreline and some big hits for you, Richie. I guess for yourself personally, what was it like just to be out on the field with those with that jersey on your chest?
It means a lot. It means a lot for every PNG kid coming up. Their dreams to put on the Kumu jersey. So it's a big thing for me. I would rather I put my body on the line for that. So I don't really care what happens after. But
yeah, well, we've seen the highlights. You definitely put your body on the line. And so your brother Seb as well. He's played for the Kumals. Did he give you any preparation or tips of how to go when you were going into the camp?
Oh, he just told me just get ready for the game. Just don't think too much, don't stress, and just get your head in the game and you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it was a game played with plenty of heart, Bomber. What did you make of Richie's performance on the weekend?
Well, everybody knows them Pacific Island nations there, PNG, it's a national sport in PNG. They just love the rugby league over there. And the same with Tonga and all that. When they go out there, they're big bodies, they're chiselled bodies there, and they just like to whack. Mm-hmm. A lot of them just don't want to tackle around the legs. They just want to just whack hard and hurt, and a lot of them do. So.
Mm-hmm. Good to see Anthony Milford getting the all clear to come up and play against his regular coach in Wayne Bennett against the England side as well.
Yeah, well, like Richard said, it was good that this time that the NRL clubs got on board and released their players to the like we're trying to grow the sport in PNG and Tonga and Samoa and the Cook Islands, Fiji and all that. So it was good that all the NRL players went and helped all these and the spec. I'm sure some of them players from PNG were good that some of them got there, and obviously Milford there because he's probably an idol of some of them players that he did play with. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess you came up against one in Alex Glenn playing against the Cook Islands, but quite personally actually, with a couple of big hits in the game. But I guess for the Cook Islands, it was good to have a player of that kind of stature playing for them.
Yeah, it was good. If you get an NRL player coming, you want to step up your game and you want to get out. For me personally, if I had an NRL player playing alongside me, I'll be trying to step up my game, trying to get a win. It's pretty good to bring those players back. Gives motivates the player to play even harder for their team.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. And the other rep game that we had in amongst that was the Australian Jillaroos taking on the New Zealand Ferns, and we had one of the former North Tigers women's players in there with Brittany Brayley as well in the Jillaroos squad. Good to see the women on display.
Yeah, really good for the game. I mean, as a club at North, we really pride ourselves on pushing forward the women's game. We sort of field junior girls teams, A-grade women's sides, so we have quite a lot of girls play at our club, and having someone like Brittany that was at the club for a couple of years was fantastic in us trying to drive that. But I think it's an important and a fast-growing part of the game. Mm-hmm. It's good to be able to see those girls recognised with an Australian jumper and being able to put on sort of the same stage as the men.
Mm-hmm. And you got Brendan Marshall taking over the coaching duties this year as well. Good to have someone from the Jets putting his hand up.
Yeah, it's really good. Brendan's been around the club a little while with his son plays there, and he's got his daughter playing in the side with him this year in our women's A-grade side. And to have someone with his sort of experience, he's brought a little bit of that Jets flair to their style of play. They're not an overly big side that we have at North in our women's A-grade side, so he's definitely brought a lot of that Jet style of football to their training, and it's starting to show on the field now.
Excellent. Well, it was a good display on the weekend. Well, now getting into the action in the City vs Country game, and there's been now before getting into the action of the City vs Country game, there's been a lot of action off the field with some high-profile players facing potential drug charges. It all started last week with Sean Kenny Dow getting arrested at Ivy nightclub for cocaine possession. Yesterday, the Roosters released a statement saying he would be stood down indefinitely pending the conclusion of the club's internal investigation and consultation with the club's board of directors. The story then continued with Jesse Bromwich and Kevin Proctor being ruled out of the Rugby League World Cup starting in October after allegedly snorting lines of cocaine off a dealer's phone outside the Cube nightclub in Canberra following the Anzac Test in the early hours of Saturday morning. At 5:10 a.m. last Saturday, CCTV cameras in Canberra city centre allegedly captured local man Adrian Mark Crowther lining up cocaine on his phone before Bromwich and Proctor both snorted it through banknotes. Bomber, the NRL Integrity Unit has some work to do following a big week of news that you probably would have liked to have seen kept to the games on the field.
Yeah, well, obviously, this is not the weekend that we wanted all this. We wanted to be talking about the Pacific Island tests, the Anzac tests, the Jillaroos, the City Country. So for this to come up, it's not a good look for the game. So obviously the Integrity Unit has got some work there, but we'd be a little bit naive to think that these are probably the only players. Hopefully the penalty can be a big wake-up call to not only these players, but to other players that may be doing it now. So.
I guess big news out of last year was Corey Norman getting caught with drug possession as well, and he copped a huge fine. Do you think you'd see similar kind of match bans faced by these two players?
Yeah, well, under the rules there, obviously something's got to be done there. I know they have been stood down from club there, but if it's only going to be a 2-week fine, players going to run the gauntlet still. So until there's a penalty there that makes them shake in their boots a little bit there. I see Gordy Tallis has come out and said they should be fined 10% of what their salary is. So they're on 500,000 there and all that there. So it hits them in the hip pocket. So, but I don't know what the answer is. I haven't had a real good thought, but a decent stint on the sidelines is deserved. So.
Richie, I guess the big news for both Kevin Proctor and Jesse Bromwich coming out of that was that they've been stood down for the World Cup later in the year. I know after having one taste with the PNG side, you really want to be in there for the World Cup. What would it mean for you to get ruled out of the World Cup at this stage of the year?
I'd actually hate that. For me myself, I wouldn't want to put anything on the line to jeopardize my teammates and my country, and my name as well. It takes a while for you to build up your name, and then just one silly little good night out, and then everything just goes down the drain for that. So I wouldn't want to put my reputation and my getting selected for playing for my country on the line. So I wouldn't do it.
How much responsibility do you think the players have to take on when they start getting leadership roles, and when a lot of their money starts coming from being a sponsor of different products? Have you really got to own up to your actions, I guess?
Yeah, 100%. You have to own up to your actions. I agree with what Bomber said. I think we're naive to think that this will ever be gone from the game. At the end of the day, they're just human beings, and in any sort of form of society, you're going to have that element of people that do it. But if the penalty is big enough, hopefully you'll deter the majority of people from doing it. But those sort of guys that are in those leadership roles, the buck really stops with them at the end of the day. They are role models. There's kids in New Zealand that would have watched that game and thought, I want to be wearing that jersey one day, and their sort of actions like that in my opinion, sort of cheapen the jersey a little bit, So, the penalty has to suit the crime, and they'll feel it in the back pocket, as you say. They won't be able to play in the World Cup now. They'll lose their own private sponsorships. So, as Richard said, they've lost their little bit of the aura around their name that they built up, which I know Jesse Bromwich had a very good reputation in the game, and he's forever now, unfortunately, going to be tarnished with that brush, not what he's done on the field. So
that's it. Well, I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more over the coming weeks as more information and more penalties start to get dished out. But as we move on to the final city versus country game ever was played over the weekend. It's got a tradition of over 100 years, and this year marked the end of an era with City proving too good with a late try to seal the victory 20-10. Paul Gallen had the honour of kicking the final conversion in the City versus Country match. And Bomber, were you surprised by the results? I think City were the favourites going into the contest.
No, actually, I think Country on the TAB were favourites in this game. They picked the team early there because the Country boys always want to play for the Country, whereas the City obviously don't as much there, and obviously Freddie couldn't even pick a team there for a while, and a couple of players that were picked in his team haven't even played NRL this year, so they're a little bit down, but obviously Freddie weaved his magic there, got them together there, and they produced the goods and took the win away. So.
Well, this try was pretty reminiscent of Blake Ferguson's for Australia against New Zealand. A little bit of an opportunity try for the country team, but it was a good contest. Would you say it's a shame to see it come to a finish?
Oh well, for the people in the country, it would be. When they first put it on years ago, it was a selection trial for New South Wales, but it hasn't become that for a while. There normally it's the extra players there that they're looking at that get a run here, but the people in the country, it's grassroots football out there. Like all the crowd there, a majority of them are just grassroots football that are just playing for country teams, and all these country lads, that's where they've come from. They've played for Mudgee and all the country towns there. So it is a little bit of a shame there. But hopefully the NRL can get on board and maybe make the NRL teams take one of their games next year to the country somewhere. So.
Well, the backdrop looked fantastic out of the back of that game.
Yeah, I think it's all money these days for NRL teams there. They need to be making the money. That's why they don't take as many games there. So, but hopefully next year, once they do their own draw where the NRL has more say on the draw, maybe one game from each club must be taken to the country. So.
And as we touched on before, the final representative game for Australia was the Aussie Gillaroos up against the New Zealand representative side. It was good to see 4 members from the Ipswich brothers women's team in the side as well, with Brittany Brayley, Ali Brigginshaw, of course. We also had Amelia Cook and Cody House in the side, so it was good to see the girls earning a representative call-up again.
Yeah, well, obviously the ladies' game is going ahead in leaps and bounds there. The hits by the ladies, that, as you probably see a little bit later on in the highlights there, there's just some big hits, and the professionalism is starting to come in again. This is the hit here, I think. Boom, over the top. So. Yeah. So they're not shy in putting their bodies on the line.
And it was a great precursor to the Australia Test match against New Zealand in the men's as well. Unfortunately, it was broadcast afterwards, but good to see it getting the television screen time.
Yeah, well, the ladies' games, it's coming along in leaps and bounds, but they've just got to take one step at a time there. They can't expect to be on live TV, on Channel 9 just yet. But as they're going along, like they're on TV now. A couple of years ago, you wouldn't have even seen a women's game on TV, and the standard was probably not as good. Now, I went to juniors at Capalaba on the weekend, 13s and 15s, and there was just girls everywhere there running around teams galore. So as the year gets on there, they'll be getting more and more as the year gets on, so it'll be good for them.
Excellent. Well, it was really good to see them playing over the weekend, and good to see a lot of the girls backing up for brothers over the weekend as well. Well, coming up next, we'll be discussing round 8 of the Rugby League Ipswich competition and round 10 of the Intrust Super Cup. All that and more here on After the 80. Welcome back to After the 80, your local source for everything rugby league. Now that the representative round is done for another year, it's back to business as usual, and the Rugby League Ipswich competition will kick off on Saturday night with the Swifts Bluebirds taking on the Norths Tigers. Swifts are 2 points clear of Norths on the A-grade ladder at the moment, and last time the two teams faced off, it was in the opening round of the competition where Swifts took the win 25-16. Jason, do you see the Tigers getting revenge this weekend when you travel out to Perga?
Yeah, that's always the plan. You sort of go in confidently. I know in round 1 there we started off really well against them, and we led probably to about midway through the second half. And then they sort of came home pretty strong at the end. I was quite impressed with the Swift side. We did have 7 A-graders out that night, and a couple of under-19s playing sort of A-grade debuts. Unfortunately, we haven't fared much better since then with injuries and sort of players coming back from other commitments, but we're still yet to field our top 17 yet this season, so all fully fit. But we had another sort of long-term injury last week to our backup hooker, Kane Fuller. But we're hoping to get maybe a couple of guys back from injuries for this game, and possibly a former premiership winning player that may have signed on in the last week or so that may be back in the next week or two as well. So we're happy with where we are at the moment, but it'd be nice to get sort of that top 17 on the field for once.
Excellent. So some big signing news to come out of the Tigers yet. Well, and there was a bit of tragic news for both clubs this week, Bomber, but they'll be looking to back up on the weekend. Yeah,
obviously our thoughts go out to the family of Brett Landrigan, or Goose as he was known to everyone there. He was a grand final player with both Norths in 94, 95, and then he went over to Swifts and won the premiership in 96, 97, and then he played in 2 more with Swiss. He played in 6 grand finals. He was a goal-kicking winger, probably one of the best around at that stage. Did have some time with the Jets in the early 90s as well. So obviously he'll be sadly missed by both clubs there. And I think he still holds the record for most points scored in grand finals in the Ipswich competition since we've started in over 100 years. So it's a big record, and he'll be sadly missed. So.
Well, there's some big other games of the round with Brothers and Fassifern taking on each other, and I think the other game of the round will be the West End Bulldogs and the Eastern Cobras, with Goodness sitting out this weekend. Well, now on to the Intrust Super Cup, and round 10 will be kicking off with the Townsville Blackhawks taking on South Logan, the Northern Pride taking on Tweed Heads, Redcliffe up against Mackay, and the game in focus this week is the Central Queensland Capras, who welcome the Ipswich Jets to home. Richie, it's going to be tough for you to back up after last week, but do you think the Jets have what it takes to climb up the ladder a little bit further?
Yeah, we definitely do. Just get into preparation, and if we prepare well, we should be able to get over there and get 2 points and come back home. So yeah,
Excellent.
That's all right. Yeah.
Well, everyone else has had a bit of a rest. Nate Neal was in the winning Queensland resident side over the weekend as well. Good to see him in there. So only the 2 of you in rep duties this weekend. So a good chance for the boys to get a bit of rest in before this weekend.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, just get a bit of rest and probably get there, prepare better, get in there, and then get in the game, and then see what happens at the field.
I guess 3 wins on the trot, you'd be feeling pretty confident at the moment of the season?
Pretty confident at the moment, so hopefully.
It continues.
Yeah.
That's it. Bomber, you reckon the Jets have got it?
Oh, well, I can't see why not there. They've been in form. Like I said, 3 wins in the last 3 games there. They're obviously gaining momentum, which is a big thing in rugby league. But obviously this is a game that they must win. So, like, CQ are lower on the ladder than them. But in saying that, they're not going to be easy up there at Brown Park. So, but I think the Jets will get away with it there. So.
And the PNG Hunters getting the bye off on the weekend. That's probably a good move for most of the guys that you've been playing alongside last weekend. With I think it was at 12 players coming out of the
12,
side.
Yeah. Like they were pretty happy because they got a bye, and then next week they got us. So they're like, "Yep, you better watch yourself out." I'm like, "Yeah, you're lucky, you have a bye." So I'm like, "Yeah, I'm looking forward for it."
yeah, you'll be coming up against a lot of them. That's fantastic. Excellent. Well, as we look at the ladder, Ipswich are only just out of the top 7 there, sitting on in 8th place with 8 points, equal with Mackay Cutters. As you mentioned, Bomber, the CQ Capras sitting just 2 points below with 6 points in 12th place. And the PNG Hunters, with a lot of their players in that PNG Kumul side over the weekend, they're sitting in 2nd and go into this weekend with the bye. Redcliffe obviously on top as well, another strong season for them. Jason, any surprises for the ladder for you at the moment, or are you expecting the Jets to start climbing this weekend?
Yeah, I think, like Bomber said, it's a must-win game, not only because the Capras are below them, but you start to lose touch with that sort of top 6 there and the finals race if you keep losing games, especially the teams that are below you. Probably Sunshine Coast Falcons having another really good year there too, with Craig Ingebrigtsen up there coaching them. They've sort of gone ahead in leaps and bounds, I think, since he's gone up there. But no real surprises. The PNG Hunters are always a strong side. Redcliffe are always up there. So, but yeah, definitely a must-win for the Jets, and they probably have to keep winning for a little while too to stay in touch with those top sides.
Well, it's going to be a tough test this weekend and an even bigger test next weekend for you, Richie. Yeah. Thanks very much for coming on the show, mate. It's great to have you on here, and congratulations for the PNG Kumul's call-up as well, mate.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me, Ben. Yeah.
Excellent. And Jason, a pleasure to have you on the show as well. Good to have a North Tigers man in here.
Yep.
And good luck for the weekend against Swifts as well.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. And Bomber, once again, big weekend of football ahead for you.
Yeah, well, it's Rugby League Friday, Saturday, Sunday last weekend, and we've got all the games there. We've also got the Hill Stroomer games over at the Oval this weekend, so I'll be over there calling them. So it's just more Rugby League.
Excellent. Well, for all of us here on the After the 80, have a great weekend. I hope it's full of Rugby League.